Hey everyone, it's Nickens back again with the thing that I originally started with, which was a tier list video way back 2 years ago. Thinking about making an hour-long video is crazy to me nowadays, and I think that I'm going to try and make this short and sweet and combine everything together, not separating pitchers and batters as much as that's great. But as like the game evolves, I think that there's no longer just pitchers and batters. There's guys who can do it both ways, and the most successful players in MLW right currently are all great offensive players as well as pitchers. So I think I'm going to keep that into account when I make the list on the priority of players and how they did. So first off, starting with Andy, his hitting. He had a couple of dingers, a few RBIs. Didn't play. I'm trying to think what he did in the playoffs, and I can't really remember if he even recorded a stat. So I'm gonna put him in C tier. I think that's pretty generous, pretty average for what happened this year. BDZ didn't have a bad year in terms of his playing time. He got in 6 games this year, so it wasn't like he did bad at all. His pitching is really what brings him up into C tier. He had a pretty good pitching stint for the most part, but he was the bottom of the league of average, and so I really can't justify him putting higher in the C, even though I really want to, and I think he's a pretty good player. But yeah, you can't have stats like that and expect to be any higher, unfortunately. But shout out BDZ, great guy. We're going on to Ben Wilson. He played in 7 games this year, started 3 of them, and did not record a hit. So I think that's grounds for D tier, unfortunately for Ben. We saw what he could do on the Diamondbacks, and unfortunately he did get traded. I don't know if that was in his want to get traded. He was pretty good a couple years back, and he's a nice guy. But if you don't get a hit this year and all you do is hit, unfortunately, you can't get much higher than D tier. So, all right, next up is Blade. And I think he had a little bit better of a year. I was really impressed with his growth. Obviously, he couldn't play as much as he wanted to with his injury, in terms of like how he felt with the arm. So I don't want to dock him too much for that. Although, I mean, his stats aren't much better than Andy's, and I put Andy in C, and they have very similar stats in terms of home runs and RBIs. But he does have a better average. Blade does. So I think the talent and the ability to go do better next year is there, and I hope Andy does better as well. But I think Blade this year is probably a C tier or a B tier, and I think he maybe justifies A if he plays a little bit better and is playing in all the games. But that's where it's at. Didn't win in their playoff performance. He didn't play bad there, but I think it's probably a B tier season for Blade. Brendan, pretty obvious where he's going. Right into double S tier. What a year. Last year was not good for Brendan at all. He led the regular season in ERA. He was lights out in the postseason up until the World Series, and the Diamondbacks just blew him out of the water. I mean, it wasn't a bad season for the Cobras at all, and really, I think they're really happy that they got to the World Series after that being on their back for so long. And Brendan was a huge reason that they were able to do it. It was kind of what Drew was talking about way back when about Brendan, how great he was. It finally, put all the pieces together. He got practice on the zone, and he looked really good. And super proud of the growth in the Cobras that they could be able to do this. I mean, a lot of people have been doubting them for a long time, and it's very, very exciting to see them back. MLW is always great when the Cobras are great. And then this season was no exception. I mean, it was a really fun season to watch. Up to Jorgensen, and it's kind of tough where to put Brendan Jorgensen, because his batting was not bad. In fact, his batting was better than Blade, but his pitching was probably some of the worst of his career. I thought last year was not so great from Brendan, and then this year it seemed that every team he played had his number. Even though he had a couple lights out games last year, his first 2 outings against the Wildcats and the Mallards were pretty all right, but afterwards not good at all. And that's a loss of confidence from him as well. And that's that's something he needs to build back over time. And I think this year, I'm going to give him a solid B tier because his batting is still pretty good. Him overall as a player has a really high ceiling, but this year did not perform to that level. And you saw that batting improved, but pitching kind of went on a decline as well. Going to Zerlag's popping down right into C tier. I'll put him above BDZ. I'm not really going to order it, but I think this is just going to be kind of, I may order as we go along. But I think Brendan Zerlag really took a step back this year. He was really clutch last year for the Gators. And this year, not as much, obviously because they didn't win as much. So I think when Brendan Zerlag is playing well, the Gators play pretty well, but all of them have to be together in that. And this year was not their year. And it's sad to see him get bounced from the playoffs. And because of that, the Diamondbacks were able to win the playoffs. So, I'm sure Jimmy Norp has given all of them a great handshake. All right, we're going on to Brennan Russell, who I was really impressed with this year. I remember the first video I made. I was not impressed with him at all. And that was his year that he started like 1 for 14 and just had one of his worst years statistically. And this year, he had some iconic highlights with the minor league baseball home run, which was so sick. He played pretty well in the playoffs. I think that he definitely put his team in a position to win. Base percentage was about 400. And I think that was really, really, really a solid year for him, a solid outing. But I really think that Brennan took a step up this year in terms of his ability. He was almost 400 on-base percentage, and I think that definitely warrants a step above everybody else. So I'm putting him in A tier. Caden Irwin. I think he's a step above all these guys, but still at the bottom here. Didn't play super well in terms of batting. Pitched pretty well, though. In a really good year for the Mallards. And a really big step up for them as an organization. Being able to make the playoffs after missing it for so long. Bennett, D tier, probably above Ben. He did have a home run. But other than the first game of the year, he didn't see a lot of playing time. The downtown Diamondbacks were really struggling. I think that you'll see him more next year after the downtown Diamondbacks don't necessarily play with their food for the first 6 games. But he's on a great team, a great organization. He'll bounce back. But this year, I think he deserves D tier. Chris GM A tier. I think for sure that he deserves it. Being the bright spot on the Gators will work. Just having a struggling year and a struggling organization. We'll see how they do with Jadwick on their team, but I think that it'll be a good move eventually. Okay, here we go. Next, Dallas Allen's double S tier. The best batting, Silver Slugger of the regular season. One of the best for 9-game stretches, probably in MLW history. Don't know if you'll ever see that from anybody ever again. I think that alone is deserving of double S. I wish he played better the rest of the season. I don't think he's above Brendan in that. I wish that the Eagles played better in the playoffs. But overall, I think you can't dock him too much for that. I think it was a great season. There was no sophomore slumps this season. And these two guys proved exactly why. They were amazing. They were lights out. Dan the Man Schultz. I think he goes in S. I think he had a very great season facilitating as a manager. I think he had a great season pretty much from the pitching side of things. Batting, he was up. He raised his average significantly after being below 200 the past few seasons. So I was very, very excited to see that Dan was really putting everything he had into the season, and he had a roster around him to really showcase his skills as a player and as a manager, because we always knew he had it in him, being Kyle's brother, but just wasn't able to put all the pieces together. Zach Whalen was really good this season, and everybody played together. Unfortunately, I think it came down to in the postseason that they weren't able to continue that. It's tougher when you're working on just a 3-game stretch. and some guys will just put their best players out, and you want to rotate all those guys, and it's tough to pick between just 3. Do I think it's the only reason they lost? No, I don't know. 5-man rosters can work. I think it still needs time to see, but as of right now, they're not the best strategy, and so I'm going to continue to figure that out over time. So I think that Daniel Schultz definitely deserves S tier. Drew, I think, goes in A tier. A tier. Really solid season as a manager. Had about a 200 some odd ER. Had a 200 average. Didn't pitch, but I think just alone with looking at how Brennan affected his team, I think it's on the same level as Drew. Drew did a great job of getting his team rallied and getting his team a shot to win every single time. And I think that's all you can really ask for. And I'm very excited to see where the Cobras go next year. It's just really important for the Cobras organization. And any role that he plays, I mean, I think he was probably one of the best defenders all year. And I think he is one of those people that enjoys defending. Does he have the same level of connection that the downtown Diamondbacks do in terms of defense? I don't know. He just that the Cobras haven't shown that to that level yet, but I think they can improve on that. They can improve their chemistry, and it'll be great to see what they do next year. Alec Warda, I think, also deserves an A tier. Very solid season from him. 200 average, 4 home runs. Always a facilitator. Getting on base, he's dangerous. Always when he gets a hit. Always wanting to stretch it out. And I think that he definitely deserves it. I may have to figure out another way at this. There's so many players. But I think Alec deserves A tier. He's a really great player. Anytime he steps on the base paths. And I think that, they're just a few hits from getting to a World Series and getting another championship. It seems like they're finally putting it all together. Stephen McLeod is a huge part of that, and Alec is a part of that decision-making, bringing him in Mac Hawley as well. So I think that this was a good year for the Preds, and hopefully they can improve upon that. Jack did not play many games this season, and so I don't think I can put him above C tier, just because he missed so much with school, work. But I think his managerial decisions were great this year. I think that the trade to get picks for Chadwick was really important for them, and now they have picks for the first time in a long time. And Chadwick's on a happier team, so I think it's a win-win for both of them at the moment. Obviously, we'll see how it pans out. Jack in terms of sacks had a 150 average, didn't too crazy, and I think because of that he ends up in C tier. Not too much to talk about, but I'm looking forward to see what the Magic do with their picks for sure. James, another year. For some reason, you go without a hit. Infuriating to see how many times he's hit the ball, and it goes into a force out. Like, how many times has James been put in that situation? I'm sure there's a whole compilation for it. But glad to see he's found a home in the Magic. I hope that this next year he can get some more playing time and finally get a hit. Holy crap, dude! Please, for the love of goodness, James, I believe in you, man. And I just think it's crazy that he's been in the league this long and just hasn't got that time to shine yet. So we'll see how much playing time he gets next year. But with the way that everybody else on the Magic is playing, I think he could probably definitely get some. Chadwick, I think it's a solid B. I'll put him here. It's tough to know switching leagues. He had to play the Wildcats twice in a season, which is not great. They had seen him already. So it's tough to say how impactful he'll be at the moment. I mean, I think the 3 superstars right here, it's just going to be tough to beat them. They just have to really get going next year, get their pitches going, maybe change up some arm slots. But I think overall, they're a really solid team, the Gators. It's just they have to put it all together. But when they put it all together, it'll be great. Jackson Pearson is really on the cusp of being a super amazing player. he gets to facilitate and sit behind two of the greats with Nick Saylor and Kyle Schultz. He can pitch. He has another league that he plays in where he does pitch with Trey Flood and all of them, with Bay City. So he can do it all. It's just that he hasn't got the moment yet. He's still playing really well. I think he... Where is he at? I mean, he's still third in terms of average, but I mean, when you have a guy who hits as well as Jackson on the Wildcats, I think you would much rather have a guy like Jackson Pearson than Ryan Kelly. I mean, Jackson Pearson has an X factor to him. He's able to get more balls in play, which gives you the ability to allow defenses to make errors, to mess up. Ryan Kelly just gets on base, which is great, but he also struck out a lot. And Jackson Pearson is able to have more impact on the game, and I think he definitely deserves an A tier. Probably right there. I don't know if I can put him S. Maybe if he pitches a little bit more, if he gets some more playing time in that, I think he can be an S tier player. But I think sticking it at the top of A tier is probably the most fitting for him. Do I really have to talk about this much? MVP, Jimmy Norp, Silver Slugger, give him all the awards, give him my house, give him my money. It's a criminal how great he is. It's just the level of consistency that he has. And pulling his team to be better, just dragging them kicking and screaming to another World Series, the first back-to-back World Series in 4 or 5 years. I mean, hats off, tip off, Jimmy Norp. I was a doubter. I'll freely admit that and say it on camera. I doubted Jimmy Norp, and I shouldn't have. I asked for forgiveness. And I'll freely admit it, and I will say that I was wrong, and I'm still wrong. And I think that Jimmy has silenced all the doubters, asserting himself as one of the greats in MLW history. So John Heath is tough to place in my mind because he really played poorly in the regular season, played all right in the postseason. So to me, I mean, to see a guy fall that hard in the regular season versus where the rest of his teammates were at, or at least where he was last year compared to himself, I kind of want to put him at the top B tier, because I think the rest of the guys play either a very key important role and were successful at that, did both ways, Cheatham carried their team, and Jonah for a good portion of the season was keeping his team down until the postseason where he really lifted them. So I think that deserves the highest of B tier, but for the most part, I don't really see him being an A tier or S tier player this year. I think next year he definitely has the skills. He always has the skills and the talent to do so, but this was just not a good year for him. I think Curdy definitely deserves a B tier, taking a step forward in his development. Stepped up at the right time when a lot of his Magic teammates were struggling, playmaking, building on offense, and so I think he deserves B tier. Not too much to say. Pretty average season from him. It's a step up, usually since he was below average, but I think he did a great job this year, and I'm very excited to see where he goes next year with the new roster. Robles, S tier. I think he did really well. I think he definitely carried his team into the playoffs. He's just that kind of guy. All of the talent and experience. I think he thrives on a different pitching style in a different pitching world. But gosh, his ability at the plate to make an impact is amazing. He's going to be one of those guys that you always want on your team, and I think he's been a leader for the Mallards. That on the field. Tommy's always been a leader in terms of guys and building them up, but Robles just has the ability to really go onto the field and make an impact, and I think Tommy really needed that in a player, and that's really good. So Kyle Schultz, S tier. Usually he's been double S every year except this year, and I think the reason I just have to put him in S is that yes, he had such a great year at the plate, but his pitching was just Don't know what happened. That's a guy who's going to take a lot of work. He's been busy behind the scenes working night and day, getting everything done. And so I'm not going to say that he needs to do anything else for the organization. And I think that's probably, there's a lot of stuff going on for Kyle that he has to do both, and it finally probably caught up with him where he's not able to get out and pitch as much as he'd like. I think really that's it. I don't think Kyle Schultz is washed. I think that he just really is doing a lot, both in terms of his personal life and, MLW and work, and it's all combined into one. And so how much time do you really think about going out and pitching on a day-to-day basis if your off-season is filled with tournament after tournament and TBS and walk-off and barstool and all of the stuff that he's doing? And so I think this is the first year we see the effects of that, just being a CEO, being a player, doing all of it. And still, he's only S tier, which is still crazy. But that's just, that's kind of where I'm at on that. Kyle's still an amazing player. He'll be fine. I'm just going to, maybe he'll get some more time to really hone it in this year. So, Landon was a really great surprise this year, playing super well. Super key player in terms of some clutch hits, some walk-offs. I mean, he just puts the ball in play. He's a really tall, lanky guy. He's got a great bat. And I'm excited to see where it goes. I mean, if this is his ceiling, this is his base, just first year here. I'm excited to see where he goes. And it's crazy to think that him and Trey are only 17. Jackson's still in high school. It was still in high school, I think. I don't know if he's... Jackson, leave in the comments. I can't remember if you're in college or not. But, yeah, I think Landon definitely deserves the A-tier spot. Liam, put him in C-tier. I think that just knowing what he can do when he came into the league, when he had such an impact, and seeing where he is now, it is, kind of sad. I mean, I think Liam is just kind of that player that Curdy was this year, and where he was exciting. He was, just a great guy, lovable guy. And Liam is that same way too, just not as memeable, I guess, as Curdy is. And he can pitch. It just seems that he, hasn't practiced, whatever it may be. But, he's got a high ceiling for him. I think he definitely deserves better. But this year I think he just is a good C tier. Mac, D tier. He had a 400 average. It's hard to see the field much. 400 on base percentage. It's hard to see the field much with the way that the Preds were playing this year, and I haven't really seen too much from him. I would like to see more. It's hard to see where the Preds are going, and Mac's a good player. He definitely has the baseball ability, but he needs to put that bat on a ball and really start working on that, honing that in. And if you have a guy with Ryan Cratchit's ability to pitch going up against you, and Ryan says he's a pretty good hitter, I probably believe it. And I just think he needs some more time getting in the league, seeing some more people. So we'll see how it goes next year, but I think he's in D tier for now. Let's go to Shima. Put Shima in C tier. Not bad. Why is there like 2 Neil Smiths in here? I just realized there's so many things wrong with this. There's double the amount of pictures in here for some reason. But that's all right. Well, I guess it ends over here. I guess you could put Neil Smith the batter. Neil Smith is not in this. I was like, why is that here? Something's happened. Something's gone weird with this thing. But, that's just the way it works in love and working in content. So, yeah. So we'll go on to Nick Saylor. Sick Naylor is... Let's see. I'll get him up here. I'm not using a wireless mouth, which I should because I don't have enough ports for it. I think Nick Saylor is a solid S tier. Had a pretty good year. He had a great year batting and a good year pitching. Kyle Schultz had a great year batting and a May year pitching. I think he's probably the best batter MLW has ever seen. But it just didn't have the same year that they had The beginning of the year kind of slumped for them, and when they were really hitting the best part of their season, they collapsed against the Preds. And Nick was really consistent throughout all that, putting his team in a position to win. But it's tough to justify them being any higher than S because of just the way that things ended and the results on the field. So I don't think they're bad players. Obviously, they're in S tier, but I don't think they really need to get back to their consistency level, which is a World Series pretty much every other year. So I think these guys will be back. I wouldn't bet against them. It's tough to know in this league who's good and who's not. But yeah. Reese Harris. I love Reese. I talk to Reese all the time. I'm going to put him in. He didn't really get to see the field this year just because of all the struggles that were going on. I wish I got to see him more. It's tough to know how he's going to do in MLW just because he didn't get a lot of consistent playing time. And it's going to be tough for him this year with Jason Chadwick coming over. But there's still a chance. I think he has a place off in pitching just in case Chadwick or Cheatham aren't there. So I'd like to see him get more playing time. I'd like to see more from him. But obviously if he doesn't really get to see the field, then I can't really put him any higher than D tier. But Rudy, I don't think he really played this year, but love him to death. Big emotional support for the Preds. Great guy. So he'll put him in D. Ryan Cratched is in double S. Gosh, he'll carry this team forever. He's just that good of a player. And great guy as well. And very excited to see what he does next year. I think an easy double S is, the easiest way to put it. So, yeah. Sawyer Bean. I want to put Sawyer Bean in S tier. I'm going to do it. I'm going to put Sawyer Bean in S tier, the bottom of S tier. Gosh, he was so good. Gosh, he was so good and so clutch. Just played so well towards the end of the season. Pitched well. Really kept the Cobras afloat. Was able to be stepped up in all critical situations. Had a great year, even when nothing was going wrong and everything was going right. I'm just so excited that Drew drafted this guy. He was such a solid draft pick, and it really panned out this year for the Cobras. And if they can play, if Brenda can continue to play like that, it's great. It's just hard to keep this level of success going, and Sawyer Bean was a part of that and was just amazing. Why is there so many things going wrong with this recording? It's hilarious. But yeah, Sean Flynn. 200 average, 2 home runs. So he had a 200 average, 2 home runs. I think he definitely is in B tier. A lot more clutch, obviously, than some of these guys here. But I think that his level isn't up to here with Drew. But he's still a great player. He's really consistent. He was really able to show up this year, played in most of the games. In years past, he wasn't able to do that, and I think that showed. I think he was able to make a lot more impact on the games, and very thankful for that in terms of being a Cobras fan. But I think he just needs to continue to be consistent, as he always is. He's one of the most consistent players on the Cobras, and very excited to have him for next year as well. So yeah. Stephen McGlade, A tier. I can't really. He doesn't hit as well, Sawyer, so I can't really put him up here. But in terms of pitching, just having this guy on a roster and being able to back up Ryan is great. Adds such a great compliment, for sure. I really like Stephen. I think he deserves an easy A. Tommy. I'm putting him in S. Managerially, and also his play this year was great. He's not a great pitcher, but just having this guy on your roster and the decision-making and the backing behind it is great. Bringing in this guy is probably an S-tier play, so I don't really care. Who cares? This is a dumb tier list anyway. I'm putting him up here. Bonham. I put him at the top of C. I'll put him above Curdy. I think he's the best player on the Magic. Not a good year for Bonham. Not at the plate. he lost Chadwick, which is the reason that he moved to the Magic in the first place. Didn't do super well pitching. It was just kind of a disaster year for the Magic. Hopefully they bounce back this year, and Bonham's had a better year. I mean, everybody's talked about how good of a hitter Bonham can be, but it's not panned out yet, and I really hope to see more from him. Trey, C tier. This guy has a lot of potential to be a great player. He needs to see the ball better this next year. He can definitely pitch. He's really 1 out away from a couple of wins. So I really like this guy's ceiling. I think Jimmy drafted really well for himself. And it'll turn up a few years down the road when he has a guy like Trey Flood on his team. Trey can do it all. He's a great leader. He'll be great on the sidelines, and I think that he'll get his time here soon. Ty didn't really see the field much. I really don't know much about Ty Smith. I know he runs his own league, and I know he's probably a pretty good player. He's going to be able to see the ball well, but just didn't get out there much this year. The Wildcats were struggling. It's kind of like a lot of the guys that I wanted to see I wasn't able to see because either the team was going wrong or something was just not there for them, and the guys that I wasn't really expecting too much out of really stepped up, like Sawyer and Landon just played amazing, and because of that, guys like on the other side of things, guys like James Swanson, Reese Harris, Ty, Trey. I just realized that has Trey on it. Let me find the one there's Casey. There's Casey. Boom. So this is why we have multiple copies of this, I guess. Anyway, I'll have to fix this. Is so funny. But yeah, I think this is a good spot for him. Is in D tier. Like to see more from him, but really not too much to talk about. Zach Whalen. Wow. Honestly, what a year. Again, didn't make the playoff, didn't do super well in the playoffs, but holy crap, this guy is ever changing. A lovable personality and a great hitter. Just has really taken strides this year. There's a reason he's still on the roster, and it's because he has the potential to be really freaking good on any given day. And I think that because of that, he's definitely deserving of A tier. This is just a year that he really stepped up in terms of his production. And I mean, one of the reasons that the Eagles were so well, I mean, great leader, a great guy to beat around. I think this team really gels well together with Zach, and I think he has stats to put him in A tier. So, I'm trying to think. I'll look over this list one more time and see if there's anything wrong with it. I feel I'll probably put. Yeah, we'll flip that around. I don't want people to get the order. I don't care about this one. I think Tommy deserves that. I don't care. Anyways, that's the tier list, guys. I hope you had a good time. Let me know what you think is right and wrong. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? More content coming down the pipe, of course, as always, and I'm figuring out a schedule to put some more stuff on, maybe some new ideas, maybe some other sports. Let me know what you think. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.